again, folks. So here's time for another quick look at the cylinder heads for our Crusader 454 big block Chevy. As you know, we've already taken apart the donor engine, and one of the things I want to show you is the difference between the two types of cylinder heads. So bear with me, we'll get into some technical stuff right away. Okay, so here we go. When you look at the two cylinder heads side by side, the one on the left here is actually the one that came off our donor engine that we know came out of a truck, and the one on the right is the one that we took off the Crusader engine. Now, when you first take a look at these things, they actually look almost identical. And I say almost, and I hesitate a little bit because when you first glance at them, doing a cursory look at them, they really do look very, very similar. There's very little difference to them. The difference is, and if I just come down to the block markings here, we've got a GM4 for the truck, and then the one that we took off the Crusader is a GM3. So you might think to yourself, well, obviously GM4, this is a different iteration of the same cylinder head, and maybe it's a little bit more advanced or something, and it probably is. But the GM3 one, the main difference is actually on the input ports. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to rotate these two around, and we'll have a look and see what the differences are. Okay, so here we go. So I've got these two rotated over. So we've got the truck engine, truck head on the left-hand side. This one is the GM4, and the one on the right-hand side here is the Crusader, the blue, which is the GM3. So as I said before, when you first look at these things, they look almost identical, and the bolt pattern will match up. You could technically put this straight onto the Crusader, and it probably will run, but it'll have some quirks to it. So the difference is actually related to this side. It's the input ports on the Crusader 3 are oval rather than rectangular. So they look very, very similar. The difference is that the size of these are different. They'll actually have increased airflow, which makes them run in a different way. So if I was to try and put the truck head onto the Crusader 454, I'd have a great deal of difficulty trying to tune the engine and get it to run properly. It'll run at a different RPM range to the original Crusader head. So the option for us to actually take these heads and put them onto the 454, even though they're great heads, they've got everything we need, the valves are in good condition, they need a good clean, but it could technically go on there. Unfortunately, we have to put this one to one side. We can't use it. We have to renovate the Crusader 454 head that we've got. We'll put in the new valves that we've got, new valve stems, and give this a clean up because it has the same balance and the same setup as the other head that we've got to use. It'll also work in the same RPM range as the other Crusader engine that's on the boat. If we were to try and tune up the one with the truck engine, we would have different RPMs to achieve the same efficiency, which means our throttle controls and things would be in a different place. So, in short, can we actually take the truck engine head and put that in onto the Crusader 454? We could, but we're setting ourselves up for problems down the road. So instead, we're going to completely renovate this head, the one that came off the 454 originally, and we'll get this one set up and ready to go. Okay then, let's get some wire brushes onto the drill, and we will start to remove some of the debris and things from the cylinder head before we pop it into our dunk tank and give this a really good clean up. Okay, so there we go, very rough and ready. Cleaned off a lot of the loose debris. What I'm going to do next is give it a quick rinse, and the idea behind that is just to get some of this flaky stuff out of here. We'll get it all rinsed off. I'm not too worried about taking the valves and things out just yet. My plan for this is to take it and put it into the dunk tank that we used before. But unlike using the acid that we used, the light acid, to take off the rust and things, I'm actually going to try using electrolysis with this one. So we're going to put in a couple of anodes, we'll set it up on a car battery charger and see if we can get the rust to actually come away from it. If you remember, this is the one that we took off that had some severe rust. You can just about see down the ports here. I haven't gone too mad cleaning on the inside. There are some flaky bits of rust in there, some fairly big chunks. Again, this will all hopefully come off inside the electrolysis tank. We've still got some old gasket residue and stuff on there as well. So there's quite a lot to take off on this. And rather than using elbow grease, what I want to do is just do a bit of an experiment and see whether or not electrolysis will make the job easier. Theoretically, because it's going through water as well, it'll get actually inside each of these ports, and any of the crusty sort of flaky rust that's in there will actually start to dissolve. The atoms within that will actually allow the rust to remove itself from this piece, and it will go onto the sacrificial anodes, which we can get rid of later. So the idea is to get this rinsed off now, and we'll get it across to the dunk tank, and I will show you how we set that up so that we can use electrolysis and hopefully get this thing cleaned right up and ready to go. Okay, so we're going to set up the electrolysis tank. Now, I've just been out to Canadian Tire and picked up some supplies. Let me just show you what we've got here. So the first thing I grabbed was some laundry soda. This is actually going to help the water inside the tote to become, to basically conduct electricity a lot better. We've also got some steel bolts that I found that are pretty heavy duty, some copper wire, and we're going to use those as anodes. And the idea is that we're going to fill this with water. We're going to dissolve some of the laundry soda. It's basically a tablespoon per gallon into the bucket there. We're going to suspend the anodes, the bolts, down the sides of the tote, and they're going to be connected together with that green wire that we've got. We'll make sure the copper conducts directly to those. And then we're going to connect the whole lot up to a car battery, and we're going to insert the cylinder head. So bear with me, let's get this thing set up and see how it works. Okay, so we've got our 4 anodes suspended into the water there, or into the tote. I've used some tape just to hold them in place. I don't want them to fall off and then land against the other side, because it'll arc across, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep some distance between that and the cylinder head. I've used copper wire to connect each of the 4 together, and what I'm going to do is fill that now with some lukewarm water, and we'll dissolve up some of the washing soda. Okay, so we've got about 10 gallons in there. So what I'm going to do is do a tablespoon. I think that is half, so we need 20 of these. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the idea behind using this stuff is that it's actually going to help to conduct electricity better through the water. Obviously the cleaning properties in this as well will do it some good. If you give that a good swizzle around, make sure that's nice and dissolved. I've got some lukewarm water in here, so it should help it dissolve a bit better. This will get all the clumps off. And you'll notice that the anodes that we've got here are about halfway into the water. So what I'm expecting to happen is, as the electrolysis occurs, the rust will come off of the cylinder head and attach itself to each one of these 4 sacrificial anodes. I don't mind if they rust and start to disintegrate, that's all good. I just want the rust out of the cylinder head. So that looks pretty dissolved up. I don't see any clumps or anything in there. So that's looking good. Okay, so the next step is to get the cylinder head carefully placed in the middle. I'll probably put a couple of little blocks of wood in there as well, just to raise it up off the bottom so that the water circulate underneath, even though I'm pretty sure it will do. And then we'll get the battery charger, and I'll show you how we connect it up onto the anodes and then onto the cylinder head itself, so that we can start conducting electricity through the water. Let's see how this thing works. Okay, so here we are. I've got a standard car battery charger just here, and I'm keeping it away from the water. I don't want anything to splash onto it, obviously, because we're dealing with electricity. If you're doing this at home, please make sure you read any safety instructions and don't follow me. I'm an idiot. Okay, so we've got our tub of water there. I'm going to put the negative onto the vice grips that I've attached to the cylinder head. So let's make sure we've got a really good connection on there. That allows the connector to conduct electricity through there. Then I'm going to take the positive and connect it to one of our anodes on the side here. These are all connected together using the copper wire. Now, I've made sure that I kept the copper out of the actual electrolysis tank itself. As you know, if you deal with anything to do with boats, copper will actually degrade very quickly once it gets into an electrolytic environment, and it will just go green and mushy and disintegrate. So I've kept the copper wire outside the water and above the actual anodes themselves. What I'm going to do next, once they're all nicely connected, I'm going to plug in the power. One of 2 things is going to happen. Either everything's going to go dark and you'll look at me and think, what on earth's he done now? Or we should start to see some bubbling coming up from around the vice grips there, where it's actually starting to do the job. So bear with me while I plug this in, and hopefully the lights stay on. Okay, well, the battery charger is whizzing and whirring, which is good. So what we're looking for now is some sort of movement and bubbling inside the actual tank itself. So I'm just going to bring the camera a bit closer so you can see what's going on, and hopefully we'll start to see some sort of fizzing going on as it starts that chemical electrolysis reaction to remove some of that rust. The idea is that the rust will actually come off of the part itself and head towards each of the sacrificial anodes. Okay, so we don't have any wind or anything like that in the shop here, but you can see we're starting to get some swirling going on. Something is already happening inside the tank. It's causing the water to start to move about on its own. So that tells me something is actually happening with this. Now, as with all good cookery shows, this is going to go on for quite some time. And in the next video, I'll show you here's one we made earlier so you can see what the results are. But we're going to leave this now probably for a day before we check it, and I'll film that so you can see what's happening. And then in a couple of days' time, we should probably remove this from the tank and see what's going to happen. One thing you'll notice, I'm keeping the tank lid up on this time. Last time when we used the citric acid, we had it closed. Keeping it up this time because what's happening in the water there, where it starts to fizz and bubble, and you see little bubbles starting to pop, is actually breaking apart the water molecules. So instead of having hydrogen and oxygen together, in the water, it's breaking them apart. So we'll actually have a buildup of hydrogen if we keep that tank lid closed. And as you know, hydrogen in the spark, we could end up with a bigger shop than we need. So we'll leave this to cook and come back and have a look at it in a few hours' time.